I want you to die so your mom feels the heartache of what it's like to bury a child. It's a heartache that never goes away.
Who would kill a family of 8? Bobby Joe Manley used a key to enter the home on Union Hill Road. There, a scene of unspeakable horror. A 911 call came in at 7:49 a.m. on April 22, 2016, launching the largest and most expensive criminal investigation in Ohio history. Bobby Joe was visiting to feed some pets for some of the Rhoden family, but when she entered the home, she found the blood-soaked bodies of Christopher Rhoden Sr., her former brother-in-law, and Christopher's cousin, Gary Rhoden. Here's her 911 call.
There's blood all over the house. Okay. My brother-in-law's in the bedroom. It looks like someone has beat the hell out of him.
Okay.
There's blood all over the front room.
Ma'am, can you tell me what county that's in? Is it
Pike County?
It's Pike County?
Yes, and they drug him in the bedroom.
Okay. I need you to get out of the house. Did you drive over there?
Yes, I did.
Okay, what's your name?
Mine?
What's your brother-in-law's name?
Huh?
What's your brother-in-law's name?
Yeah.
Ma'am?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Chris Rhoden and Gary Rhoden.
Chris and Gary Rhoden?
Both of them that looks like they're dead.
You think they're both dead?
I think they're both dead. Looks like someone...
7 family members were found dead in 3 different homes. The 8th victim was found within a 10-minute drive of the others. That is 4 different crime scenes. Found dead were 40-year-old Christopher Rhoden Sr., 37-year-old Dana Rhoden, 20-year-old Hannah Gilley, 16-year-old Christopher Rhoden Jr., 20-year-old Clarence Rhoden, who went by the name Frankie, 37 Gary Rhoden, 19-year-old Hannah Rhoden, and 44-year-old Kenneth Rhoden. So Christopher Rhoden Sr. and his ex-wife Dana Rhoden were parents to Frankie, Christopher Jr., and Hannah Rhoden. Hannah Gilley was Frankie's fiancée. Kenneth Rhoden was Christopher's brother. Gary Rhoden was a cousin of the family. 3 children, a 4-day-old infant, a 6-month-old, and a 3-year-old, were found unharmed in the homes.
You have these children involved who obviously were there when the executions took place.
Investigators believe there were more than one person involved, as the sites were spread across 3 of the 4 locations where the Rhoden family members were found shot dead, and 4 different guns were used. Initially, it led investigators to wonder whether the execution-style killings were drug-motivated or connected to rival drug cartels in the area. And the reason they believed this was because they found a cannabis grow house at one of the crime scenes. Some of the members of the Rhoden family had been raising chickens for cockfighting, which provided authorities with another potential motive. But later it was revealed that it was believed to have been a killer who was local to the area, not cartel related. The killers had to be familiar with the land around the properties as well as the properties themselves. The Rhodens most likely knew the perpetrator, as there were no signs of forced entry. Also, Dana Rhoden's 2 pit bulls were known to be protective of the family, and they were not harmed. Forensic expert Joseph Scott Morgan described seeing the bullet holes outside of Chris Sr.'s trailer and expecting a, quote, a horror show inside. He continued, "This was not a random act," he said. "This is not a wrong place, wrong time scenario. You don't wind up in these locations by accident. It's a case involving a certain level of familiarity." On June 16, 2017, investigators asked the public for help in providing specific information on 4 members of the Wagner family: George or Billy Wagner, Angela Wagner, and their sons George Wagner and Edward Jake Wagner. The public was asked for any information regarding any interactions, conversations, dealings, or transactions that the public may have had with these individuals, which could be personal, business, or otherwise. Information regarding vehicles, firearms, and ammunition. Authorities announced the members of the Wagner family who lived at the Peterson Road property, searched by police the month before, were believed to have moved to Alaska. A pastor and a family friend of the Wagners told the news that several members had moved to Alaska and were, quote, trying to move on. At this point, authorities had not officially named any members of the Wagner family as suspects. The autopsy showed all 8 victims were shot with a gun barrel touching their skin or just centimeters away. I'm going to read out the gunshot wounds per victim according to reports. Christopher Rhoden Sr. had 9 shots, face, torso, and extremities. Dana Rhoden, she had 5 in the head. Hannah Gilly, 5 as well in the head. Christopher Rhoden Jr., 4 in the head. Clarence Frankie Rhoden, 3 in the head. 2 were, quote, contact wounds as indicated by soot from the gun on his skull. Gary Rhoden, 3, contact wounds, head as well. Hannah Rhoden, 2, head. Kenneth Rhoden, 1 in the right eye. It took police 2.5 years after the murders, on November 2018, to arrest all 4 Wagners. Investigators and prosecutors said that the murders were premeditated, claiming the Wagners developed a detailed and elaborate plot to eliminate the Rhoden family. On the night of the murders, authorities believe Billy, George, and Jake Wagner left Adams County sometime after 10 p.m., while Angela remained home with her grandchildren. At the first crime scene, according to investigators' timeline, Jake Wagner shot Chris Rhoden with a rifle as he stood outside his Pike County trailer home. Billy then shot and killed Chris and his cousin Gary Rhoden. At the second stop, the trailer home next door, Jake Wagner shot and killed Frankie Rhoden and Hannah Gilly. And at the third crime scene, the Wagners shot and killed Dana Rhoden. And at the last stop, Billy Wagner shot and killed Kenneth Rhoden. Police also arrested 2 additional family members, Rita Newcomb, Angela Wagner's mother, and Frederica Wagner, Billy Wagner's mother. Both were charged with perjury and obstructing justice for lying to authorities. But the charges against Frederica Wagner were eventually dismissed. So what was the motive? Jake Wagner was in a relationship with Hannah when she was only 13. Hannah became pregnant and she was only 15 at this time. Jake, on the other hand, was 20. Well, their relationship didn't last very long and Jake began to threaten Hannah. And when Hannah got into another relationship with another man and had his child, Jake was pretty upset. He even tried to pressure Hannah to falsely declare him as the father on the birth certificate, which of course Hannah refused to do so. Jake wanted custody of both children. He hacked Hannah's Facebook account and read a message vowing to never give up the child she had with him, stating they would have to kill her before she signed any custody documents. At this point, the Wagners made the decision to murder Hannah, but they were also going to kill her whole family to not only ensure that custody of the child would come under their control, but that no one would be able to point the finger at them for the murder of Hannah. The family purchased a substantial amount of ammunition and brass catchers to collect shell casings, ensuring they wouldn't leave them behind as evidence. They purchased materials to create silencers for a rifle and 2 handguns. The brothers even dyed their hair the week leading up to the murders. Then the Wagners stalked different members of the Rhoden family and killed each one of them. Special prosecutor Angela Canepa said some of the victims were treated as collateral damage. They knew that there might be other people there and agreed they would need to be killed too. The mastermind behind all of this was what seemed to be Angela Wagner. She was an obsessed mother who became really involved with Jake and George's love interests. And it's not the first time she's done this. In 2022, prosecutors called to the stand Tabitha Clater. She was George's ex-wife. She testified that while living with the Wagners, her son with George mostly slept with Angela and Billy, and that the sleeping arrangements involving her child were not her choice. Tabitha also said, quote, towards the end of the night, she, Angela, would usually have me leave so she could sit there and scratch his, George's, back and talk about the day. Thankfully, Tabitha left George, and she says she ended this because of how controlling the family was, but a little over a year before the Rhodens' murder, she said the Wagners imposed rules on her after she admitted to having an affair. She wasn't allowed out by herself to check the mail or use the house phone. When she got into a heated argument with Angela, George didn't like it and smacked her with a belt. And when she tried to leave, George would just block her way. She then bit him and tried to, quote, rip his nuts off. She hid under a truck, fearing she would get shot. Angela went back into the home, threatening to grab a gun. Eventually, Tabitha was able to leave. She got to the gas station where she called her mother, but the Wagners arrived with the police. They had filed a domestic disturbance complaint against her, accusing her of dragging her son across the floor. She also said that she never knew she was pleading guilty to a misdemeanor charge of disorderly conduct, even though defense lawyer Richard Nash produced a document indicating she paid a $214 fine. Tabitha said George gave her the money for the fine, but that she didn't know she was pleading guilty to anything. Tabitha eventually got a divorce from George, but the divorce agreement gave George custody of her son, which she wasn't aware of. When she was asked how she didn't understand the divorce agreement, she says she wasn't very smart when it came to such matters. She does have custody of her son now that George and the rest of the Wagners are behind bars. Jake Wagner admitted to shooting several of the Rhoden and Gilly families, quote, execution style. He agreed to spend the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole. Jake also testified that his father, Billy, killed at least 2 people and that his brother didn't fire a single shot. Since Jake Wagner pleaded guilty, the death penalty was dropped against the family. In 2022, George Wagner was sentenced to 8 consecutive life sentences plus 120 more years. And most recently, on January 3rd, 2025, visiting judge Jonathan Haynes sentenced Jake Wagner to life in prison with a chance of parole in 32 years, after 12 years on gun charges and then 20 for the murders of 5 of the 8 victims. Judge Haynes sentenced Wagner's mother, Angela Wagner, to 30 years, including credit for 6 years served. She had pleaded guilty to her role in helping plan the slayings. Angela's mother, Rita Newcomb, was also sentenced, receiving 5 years of probation, a $750 fine, and a suspended 180-day jail sentence, 7 days of which she's already served for lying to investigators. Billy Wagner is the last to be sentenced and maintains his innocence, despite facing the 22 charges that led to his son's conviction. His sentencing was supposed to be held on January 6, 2025, but as of now, it doesn't seem that has happened yet.
You 3 helped plan, carry out, and murder my grandson, Ruger, who was 6 months old, laying in the bed between his mom and dad, Frankie, Rhoden, and Hazel Gilly, let alone your granddaughter's mother. How greedy of a grandmother are you? How greedy. You killed your granddaughter's mother. You're evil. You're evil. You are the spawn of Satan. And the Satan is Billy Wagner. You are the evilest mother to help plan, carry out, take the lives of 3 other mothers. My daughter was only 20, and you want 30 years of your life behind bars? 30? She was 20! 20! She never knew how to buy alcohol. She got 6 months of her life with her kid. 6 months. And Hannah Mae Rhoden, the love of your life, Jake Wagner. The love of your life. Your daughter's mother. She got 4 days. Kylie Rhoden got 4 days. Do you know what kind of questions I have to answer? First, it was bad people came in. Next, they see your faces on the news. So guess what? I had to explain more. Because they're not little kids no more. They're not 6 months old. They're not 4 days old. Ruger's soon to be 10. 10 years he's been without a daddy to teach him how to fish, to teach him how to do all the man things. He has to depend on uncles, cousins. Because of you, Jake. Greedy Jake Wagner. You. I want you to suffer. This is what I want. And I told all BCI. I want your mother to live. And you boys to die as well as your dad. I want you to die so your mom feels the heartache of what it's like to bury a child. It's a heartache that never goes away. I hate you. You ruined my life. You ruined innocent children's lives. I hope you die. I pray every day you die. I pray your grandchildren and your children never want anything to do with you. And I hope they never do. I hope your daughter hates you with a passion and as much heart as I hate you, Jake Wagner. You shook my hand and acted as if you was my friend. After you shot my daughter 5 times in the head. 5 times, man, while her son lay between them. And Hannah Mae, she's holding her little girl. And you shot her. How cold and evil. You are spawns of Satan. I'll say it again. Spawns of Satan, you and your brother. And you, evilness, created them. And Miss Rita, I feel so sorry for you because I know you're ashamed to have such a daughter and grandsons that evil. Because you was the first to feel the guilt and say you was sorry, and it was your Christian duty to tell the truth. So I have not very many words for you. My heart breaks for you to have such an evil, control, and response of Satan.
Thank you, Mr. Maker. Who's next?